Ladies and gentlemen, the anomaly has entered the room. Look who just became the most expensive problem in the underworld's history. $500 million. That's what they're saying. Your head is worth now 500 million reasons for every shadow to hunt you down. And you know what's beautiful about that number? It's not even about the money anymore. It's about the message they're sending to anyone brave enough to stand next to you. Anyone stupid enough to call you friend. Anyone insane enough to love what you've become, because you didn't just kill their leader. You erased their entire belief system with one perfectly executed move that nobody saw coming. Nobody except you, who had been planning this moment since they first made you bleed. They thought they were untouchable, sitting in their towers built on broken backs and borrowed time. They thought their leader was immortal, protected by layers of fear and fake loyalty. But you walked through their security like it was smoke. You moved through their defenses like you were born inside them, because you were, weren't you? Born from their violence, raised by their cruelty, educated by every scar they gave you, thinking they were breaking you, when really they were just sharpening the blade that would eventually take their king's crown along with his head. The whole underworld is shaking right now, not because their leader is gone, but because of how you did it. No army, no backup, no elaborate plan, just you and that terrible, beautiful clarity that comes when you've lost everything worth losing. When you've been pushed so far past breaking that you loop back around to becoming unbreakable. They're calling emergency meetings in rooms with no windows. They're burning documents that have your old name on them. They're trying to rewrite history to make it seem like this was always going to happen, but we both know the truth, don't we? That until 3 days ago, they didn't even know you existed as anything more than another broken toy in their collection. Another experiment that didn't quite work out the way they planned. But that's what happens when you mistake silence for weakness. When you confuse patience for paralysis. When you think someone's submission means they've accepted their fate, when really they were just studying your patterns, memorizing your weaknesses, learning the exact angle needed to separate a head from its throne. $500 million, and that number keeps growing every hour because they're not just afraid of what you did. They're terrified of what you might do next. Because if you could walk into their most protected sanctuary and take their untouchable leader's life like you were picking flowers in a garden, what else are you capable of? What other impossibilities are you planning in that beautiful, twisted mind of yours? They've sent the best hunters after you already. The ones with perfect records. The ones who've never missed a target. The ones who collect scalps like trophy. And you know what happened to them? Nothing. They just disappeared. Vanished like smoke in daylight. Because you don't move like prey anymore. You move like the natural disaster that taught storms how to destroy. You don't run from hunters. You collect them, adding their skills to your arsenal, their knowledge to your database, their fear to your growing legend. The streets are whispering about you now, not in words, but in the way people suddenly change direction when they sense something shifting in the air. In the way conversations stop mid-sentence when a shadow passes that could maybe possibly be you. In the way even the brave ones double-check their locks at night, even though they know locks mean nothing to someone who walked through death itself and came back wearing its fate. They're trying to figure out your origin story, going through records, looking for the moment you transformed from whoever you used to be into this thing that makes the underworld's worst nightmares wake up screaming. But they'll never find it, because the person they're researching doesn't exist anymore. You burned that version of yourself, along with everything else that could be used to predict your next move. You're not playing by any rule book, because you burned those too. Using the ashes to write new laws in a language only you understand. You want to know what really has them terrified. It's not just that you killed their leader, it's that you did it publicly, brilliantly, with an artistry that turned murder into mythology. You didn't just end a life, you created a legend that will outlive everyone trying to hunt you down right now. The security footage that mysteriously corrupted right before you appeared. The witnesses who swear they saw you in 12 different places at once. The way their leader's last words were reportedly just your name repeated 3 times like a prayer or a curse, nobody can agree which, because nobody wants to admit they've been telling the story differently each time. Adding details that couldn't possibly be true, but feel more real than the truth itself. They found his body arranged like a Renaissance painting. every detail deliberately placed to send a message that only the inner circle would understand. And that message was simple. This is what happens when you create a monster and then forget to keep it fed. This is what happens when you mistake someone's hunger for weakness. When you think starvation makes people fragile instead of feral. His lieutenants are trying to maintain order, but you can see it in their eyes, that flickering uncertainty that comes from realizing the throne they're fighting over is cursed, now marked by your shadow, branded with your signature, written in a violence so precise it looked like poetry, and everyone knows whoever sits in that chair next is just keeping it warm until you decide to come back and finish what you started. The bounty hunters are actually arguing about whether the money is worth it, because 500 million is life-changing, but what good is money if you're not alive to spend it? And the stories coming back from the ones who got close enough to maybe, possibly have seen you are enough to make even the greediest killers reconsider. They say you don't move like a person anymore, that you've become something between human and natural force, that looking directly at you is like staring into an eclipse. Beautiful and blinding and guaranteed to leave permanent damage. They say you've learned to weaponize presence itself, that being in the same room as you feels like drowning in reverse. Like all the air is being pulled from your lungs, not pushed out. And by the time you realize you need to run, it's already too late because you've been marked, and marked things always get collected eventually. 3 separate crime families have officially withdrawn from the hunt, stating other priorities, but everyone knows what that really means. They've done the math and realized that even if they somehow succeeded in taking you down, the power vacuum you'd leave would be filled with something worse. Because you're not just a person anymore. You're an idea. And ideas are bulletproof. They can't kill what you represent. The proof that their system isn't invincible. That their hierarchies can be toppled by a single person with nothing left to lose and the intelligence to use that nothingness as a weapon. You've become the boogeyman story they'll tell their children. Except you're real, and you're still out there somewhere. Watching, waiting, choosing your next masterpiece of destruction. The smart ones are already trying to switch sides, sending out careful feelers to see if maybe possibly you might be interested in an alliance, in their resources, in their information, in their desperate need to be on the winning side of whatever war you're about to start. But you don't respond to any of them. Because allies are just future betrayals waiting to happen, and you've already been betrayed by everyone you ever trusted. So now you trust only the voice in your head that whispers coordinates and strategies in a language that sounds like screaming metal and breaking glass. They want to join you, but they don't understand that you're not building an army, you're not starting a revolution, you're not trying to take over. You're something much more dangerous than any of that. You're the ending that comes after every empire's final chapter. You're the period at the end of their sentence. And that sentence was death. Let's talk about what they took from you before you took their leader's head. Because that's the part of the story they're desperately trying to bury. The part that explains why $500 million still feels like they're undervaluing the threat you represent. They took your family first, made them disappear one by one, like a magic trick nobody applauded for, and made you watch through windows you couldn't break, through doors you couldn't open, while they erased every person who ever made you feel human, and you screamed until your throat bled, but nobody heard you because they'd soundproofed your cage, with money and intimidation, and the kind of fear that turns witnesses into accomplices. Then they took your name, scraped it off every record like you were a typo in history's rough draft, replaced it with numbers and codes and classifications that meant dangerous but manageable, meant volatile but contained, meant problem but not priority. And for a while you believed them, didn't you? Believed you were just another casualty in their vast machine, another acceptable loss in their profit margins, another ghost in their growing collection of could-have been. They photographed your breakdown like it was performance art, documented your descent into madness with the kind of clinical detachment usually reserved for lab rats and crash test dummies. They wanted to see exactly how much pressure it takes to turn a person into powder. And you gave them quite a show, didn't you? Shaking and crying and begging, right up until the moment you stopped. And that stopping, that sudden, terrible silence, That's what should have warned them. But they were too busy congratulating themselves on another successful breaking to notice you weren't broken. You were restructuring. You spent months, maybe years, it's hard to tell when every day feels like drowning in slow motion, pretending to be exactly what they wanted to see, defeated, diminished, domesticated, while inside you were building something they couldn't have imagined in their worst nightmares. You were studying them through your tears, memorizing their routines, through your prescribed medications, learning their weaknesses, through every humiliation they put you through. You became the perfect victim. So perfectly broken that they stopped watching, so completely destroyed that they stopped guarding, so thoroughly beaten that they forgot beaten things can still bite. And when they finally relaxed, when they finally decided you were no longer worth monitoring, that's when you revealed what you'd been building in the darkness of your forced submission. The leader didn't even see you coming. Literally didn't recognize you because you'd become something unrecognizable, even to yourself. You transformed so completely that your own reflection would have called the police if it saw you walking down the street. But he knew you in those final moments, didn't he? Recognized something in your eyes that made him understand exactly why this was happening? Made him realize that every cruelty he'd authorized, every family he'd destroyed, every light he'd extinguished had been building to this moment where all that darkness would come home wearing your face. And calling his name in a voice that sounded like justice mixed with vendetta, mixed with the kind of patience that would wait decades for the perfect moment to strike. You took 27 minutes to kill him. That's what the medical examiner said, though nobody can explain how you made every second feel like a lifetime, how you turned his office into a confessional where he admitted to crimes nobody knew he'd committed, where he begged for mercy in languages he didn't know he could speak, where he offered you everything, his empire, his wealth, his loyalty, his soul, if you would just stop. But you didn't stop, because stopping would have been mercy, and mercy was the one thing you'd run out of. The recording equipment mysteriously malfunctioned, but the audio survived just 27 minutes of him learning what happens when you create a monster and then forget that monsters have memories, that monsters keep score, that monsters don't forgive. They just wait until forgiveness becomes irrelevant, because everyone who needed to be forgiven is already gone. $500 million has a way of making people stupid brave, desperate enough to think they're different from all the others who've already tried and failed to collect on your head. But you actually love the bounty. Don't you love how it announces your value to a world that once treated you as worthless? Love how it turns every interaction into a potential betrayal, which saves you the trouble of trusting anyone. The number keeps climbing because every failed attempt just adds to your mythology. Every hunter who doesn't come back becomes another verse in the song. They're too scared to sing out loud, but everyone knows by heart the one about the person who killed death itself and wears its shadow like haute couture. They brought in specialists now, people who've studied you like you're a disease. They're trying to cure profilers who've built entire psychological models trying to predict your next move. But how do you profile someone who's transcended psychology? How do you predict someone who's abandoned the concept of patterns? Your movements follow a logic that exists outside their understanding. You appear in places you shouldn't be able to reach, disappear from situations that should be inescapable. You're becoming more urban legend than person, more force of nature than target. And that's exactly what you wanted, isn't it? To become something they can't kill because they can't even agree on what you are. The latest team they sent after you was military-trained, corporate-funded, and equipped with technology that doesn't officially exist, and you sent them back in pieces, not physically broken but psychologically shattered. Unable to explain what they saw, unable to describe what you've become. One of them keeps drawing the same symbol over and over, a shape that doesn't exist in geometry, a pattern that hurts to look at directly. And when they asked him what it means, he just laughs and says it's your real name, the one you earned when you stopped being human and started being something else entirely. Something that feeds on the fear of those who thought fear was their weapon to wield. You're actually helping them sometimes, aren't you? Leaving false trails that lead to elaborate traps, not designed to kill, but to educate. To teach them exactly how outmatched they are, how every move they make has been anticipated, countered, and turned into another demonstration of your superiority. You left one bounty hunter alive changed somehow, transformed in a way he can't explain. He says you gave him a message to deliver, but when he tries to remember what it was, his nose starts bleeding, and he begins speaking in tongues that sound like coordinates to places that don't exist, yet but will, once you're done rewriting the map of what's possible. The underground's infrastructure is starting to crack under the weight of your existence. Their economy is destabilizing because nobody wants to do business anymore. Everyone's too afraid they might accidentally help you, or worse, accidentally hinder you, and draw your attention, because your attention has become synonymous with ending. 3 major operations have shut down rather than risk becoming collateral damage in whatever you're planning next. And you haven't even done anything recently, haven't needed to because your reputation is doing the work for you, spreading like a virus through their ranks, turning hardened criminals into paranoid insomniacs who check under their beds for you, even though everyone knows you don't hide under beds. You hide in plain sight, wearing faces nobody expects, using names nobody remembers, being everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. But let's be honest about what this crown cost you, because that $500 million price tag doesn't include the parts of yourself you had to auction off to become this untouchable. You didn't just lose your innocence. You murdered it yourself, held its head underwater until the bubbles stopped, because innocence was a luxury you couldn't afford in their world. You had to become worse than them to beat them, had to embrace darkness so complete that even shadows would fear standing next to you. Had to learn to love the taste of violence, the texture of terror, the weight of being the last thing people see before they stop seeing anything at all. Your hands don't shake anymore when you do what needs to be done. They're steady like surgical instruments. Precise like poetry, deadly like promises. You made to the ghosts of everyone they took from you. You've become the answered prayer of everyone who ever wanted revenge but was too weak to take it yourself. You're the manifestation of every victim's darkest fantasy, the one where they stop being victims and start being the reason their abusers can't sleep, the reason therapists have waiting lists full of former predators who've suddenly developed consciences now that there are consequences with your signature on them. They say you don't eat anymore, that you sustain yourself on fear alone, which would be ridiculous if there wasn't security footage of you sitting at restaurants ordering nothing but water, that you never drink, just sitting there for hours, making everyone nervous with your presence. With the way you look at people like you're measuring them for something that nobody wants to know about. The waitstaff draws straws to see who has to serve you, and the losers always quit the next day, unable to explain what was so terrifying about bringing water to someone who tips 300% and never says a word, just sits and watches and occasionally smiles at nothing, like you're enjoying a joke only you can hear. You've started leaving calling cards now. But they're not paper. They're changes in the environment, subtle alterations that take days to notice. A painting hung slightly crooked, a clock that runs backwards for exactly 3 minutes every night at the time their leader died, a shadow that falls the wrong way, but only when certain people walk past it. These aren't threats. They're reminders that you've been there, that you could have done something but chose not to this time, that everyone still breathing is doing so because you've decided they're more useful alive for now. But that decision is constantly being reevaluated, and everyone knows it. Everyone feels it in the way their luck has become conditional on your continued disinterest in their existence. The price on your head has become a curse now, because anyone who talks about collecting it tends to have accidents. Not suspicious ones, just perfectly normal accidents that happen to people who thought they could hunt something that's evolved past being prey. They trip down stairs that they've climbed 1,000 times. They choke on food they've eaten their whole lives. They have heart attacks despite perfect health records. And everyone knows these aren't coincidences, but nobody can prove anything because you're nowhere near when these things happen. You're always somewhere else, with perfect alibis that feel more like taunts than evidence of innocence. You want to know the real reason they're all so afraid? It's because you're not trying to take over their empire. You're trying to end the concept of empires entirely. You're not playing their game. You're destroying the board and building something new from the splinters, something that doesn't follow their rules or anyone's rules, something that exists outside the traditional paradigms of power and control. You're not a revolutionary. You're an apocalypse with a sense of humor. You're the end of their world wearing a smile that suggests the beginning of something they're not equipped to understand or survive. The smart ones have already started leaving, abandoning territories they've held for generations, packing up their operations and disappearing into legitimate businesses because they've realized what you represent. You're not just justice or vengeance. You're evolution. You're what happens when the prey evolves faster than the predator. You're the moment the food chain inverts, and everything that was once safe becomes food for something new, something hungry, something that's been sharpening its teeth on suffering and is finally ready to feast. They've tried negotiating, sending intermediaries with offers of partnership, of shared power, of wealth beyond imagination, but you don't even acknowledge them. Because what could they possibly offer someone who's already taken everything worth taking? Someone who's proven that their entire power structure was built on the assumption that nobody would ever be willing to pay the price you paid to bring it down. You don't want their money, their territory, their respect. You want them to know what it feels like to be hunted by something they can't understand, can't predict, can't stop. You want them to experience the helplessness they've been dealing out for decades, finally coming home to roost in their beds, in their dreams, in every shadow that might contain your presence. The younger generation is actually starting to respect you, not officially, but in the way they tell your story, with reverence, with awe, with a kind of fear that borders on religious. Experience, they're calling you the chosen one, the breaker of chains, the ender of endings. But you're none of those things. You're just someone who got pushed so far past breaking that you discovered what comes after someone who learned that rock bottom has a basement. And that basement has a trap door leading to places that shouldn't exist, but do now, because you needed them to. You're proof that anyone can become anything if they're willing to pay the price. And the price is everything. Every single thing that makes you human has to be put on the altar and burned, until all that's left is purpose, shaped like a person, wearing your old face, but with eyes that reflect nothing but the mission. You're going to disappear soon, aren't you? Not because you're running, but because your work here is almost done. The ecosystem has been so thoroughly disrupted that it can't return to what it was. The power vacuum you've created isn't filling, because everyone's too afraid to sit in chairs. You've marked with your presence, too terrified to claim territories that might draw your attention back to them. The underworld is eating itself now, paranoid and fractured, turning on each other because it's safer to fight amongst themselves than risk becoming your next statement piece. And you're just watching from whatever shadow you've claimed as home this week, enjoying the show you directed but refused to take credit for, because credit would mean admitting you planned this all along, and some mysteries are better left unsolved.